that it's just the way the podcast works, I guess.
Okay.
Well, it's also, I think, ultimately, it's to make sure that we know that our voices are coming into the mic, right?
Sure.
So you're setting it that way, and then you wouldn't want to hear that with a speaker because then you get like reverb and feedback.
Sure.
So it's kind of it's about the ideal audio setup more than it is what it looks like.
Okay, because I'm like, I can hear you fine.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it's just making sure that I'm monitoring that and taking care of that. How you doing?
I'm great.
I mean, how far of you're a couple months in now, right?
Almost. Yeah, almost. I started June 1st, so getting almost through July here. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. It's been nice to have you and Rory both aboard and to just kind of figure out the feel of how people work together, what they're, kind of like what they like to do and all that stuff.
I'm proud to say I know most of the people's names now on staff.
Well, that's a good start.
And mostly what they do. I'm still struggling a little bit with all the offices, knowing where people office, but mostly. And I am really impressed with the amount of work that we're able to get done in the summer. Just so much preparation. Being in family ministry, there's stuff happening in the summer, but then also there's so much that needs to get ready for fall, and it's happening. So
and it sounds like there might be some adjustments and changes afoot. Is that correct?
Yes. We are hoping to tweak things. I think something that has happened over the last couple years or so is family ministry has been chugging along but hasn't had necessarily a vision caster for it, and people have been working on a remarkably low staff. I don't know how Prince of Peace survived. There's so many new people.
I think there's a lot of volunteers that also help with that, so that's the grateful part, is that we have a church that's involved in that way.
Yeah, but there's so many new people on staff, including, the three of us pastors are less than a year old, and so learning how each other works, I'm just amazed at the what people did with low numbers on staff. But now I feel like there's more energy being breathed into the different areas, and people are really excited to go forward quickly. They have pent up energy, so a lot is getting done in a very short amount of time. We're going to have such a spectacular fall program, but along that is imagining how everybody wanted things to be built up more, and they just didn't have the capacity to do it. So we're beefing up our confirmation program, and we are really asking questions about why things have been happening the way they are, and if that meets our goals, especially for helping families grow closer to each other and closer to Jesus, building faith together. How can we do an even better job of supporting that? So yes, we are looking at everything with fresh eyes and hopefully planning some good tweaks for the fall.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and it's it's good to be a part of it and be into a new chapter, I guess, right? So grateful to have you a part of that.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And so you preached. It was yesterday, so we record typically on Mondays, and the episodes will come out on Thursday, just to give people context. But you talked about the importance, being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me, I did listen to the sermon, so I'm familiar with what you said, but give us kind of just a broad overview of setting the table,
Sure.
what that means, why it's important to be uncomfortable, and that we were also created to be uncomfortable, right?
Sure. Well, I think that our human nature strives to be comfortable, and I think that drives a lot of the choices that we make, and we think, I'll be more comfortable if I have this particular mattress, or if I have this particular hairstyle, or whatever it may be. We are always, that's a goal that kind of underlines the choices we make, what hotel we're going to stay at, what car we drive. And I think that's really funny because that isn't the goal of our lives. That's, as people of faith, the goal of our life isn't to make ourselves more comfortable. And if we look at the heroes of our faith, the big names in the Bible, typically they got a lot less comfortable as they did their work for God. The prophets, my goodness, they lay on one side for hundreds of days and then flip to the, there's just so many things. John the Baptist, he went out and ate locusts and dressed in camel's hair. And the purpose was to get uncomfortable and learn something about God, or be able to talk about God in that discomfort. Jesus didn't choose to build himself a house and a cozy bed and to stay there and eat lots of good food, fish whenever he wanted to. He walked a lot, and he went to hard places, and he talked to difficult people, and he is our leader. And so why are we trying to remove ourselves from the world in order to be comfortable? And I also think that it's a lie that we never actually are comfortable. There's always something to complain about, and the people that have the most access to the most supposedly comfortable or luxurious things in life, they still have plenty that they're complaining about, things that aren't working right in their lives. And that's what reality TV is all about. And everybody is complaining about something. And so I think that striving for comfort is an illusion that we're striving after. So I think it's honest to say that we're uncomfortable, but I also think that it's a calling to seek something else, not to seek our own comfort all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's, do you think that is, from an American perspective, I feel like that is, that's the drive, right? It's always the drive to, make more money, do all these things in order to have those comfort creature levels. And it's less about, maybe doing the right thing.
Right. And I love that you brought that up. I'm definitely speaking to this culture that I live in. I can't really speak to the other cultures around the world. I definitely see people who have much, much less material things than we do, and have really joy-filled lives. And so maybe in a culture like that, they're not always striving for comfort. It seems like they're able to be really joyful, sleeping on a dirt floor, or not knowing where their next meal is coming from. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I was specifically speaking to this culture that I live in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You talked about the Narrows.
Yes. Zion.
Yeah. Tell me about, I guess, the difference between the wide path and the narrow path, and how maybe go a little bit more in depth than what you did on
yeah,
Sunday.
sure. So we were reading this passage out of Matthew where Jesus said, choose the narrow gate. And he was contrasting that with the wide gate that ultimately leads to destruction. And I think that he was speaking about human nature and culture. And part of feeling comfortable is feeling like you're part of the group, that you're secure in the mass, that you're not going to be alienated or made fun of or left behind in some way. And we tell ourselves that if I'm with everybody else, it must be right. This is the way everybody is walking. It must be the right direction to go. And we also shudder at the thought that we could cause a ripple and people would stumble and they would point fingers at us, and we don't want that type of attention. So we just go along, and we essentially abdicate the parts of ourselves that God created in us to do that critical thinking and to do some self-examination and to listen to the Holy Spirit. Sometimes being uncomfortable is as simple as our spirit is troubled. And how many ways do we try to ignore a troubled spirit? You know, we dive into something else. We keep ourselves busy. We numb ourselves in countless ways so we don't listen to the ripples in our own spirit because we don't want it to. We think it's going to cause us problems. It will cause us problems if we step aside and stop following the group. And the thing is, though, we already have problems. So it's not actually causing problems.
No.
If we have a troubled spirit, we actually already have problems. So.
Yeah, and then in my experience of my wife and I have been together for 20 years and almost married 20 years in March, and I think I'm finally discovering that anything that's kind of buried beneath that doesn't get addressed, and I'm trying to do a better job of it because my natural is I avoid conflict at all costs. That's just who I am, and kind of a people pleaser, and so like it's hard to dig deep.
Yes.
It's hard to be uncomfortable and sit in that uncomfortability, but that is what actually drives growth and drives
Absolutely.
change.
And sometimes things don't get resolved in a convenient timeline. That was something I learned. Now, I've been married 26 years.
Okay.
So I've got 6 years on you.
All right.
But one thing I learned really early on is actually sometimes you do need to go to sleep, even though you're angry. And I fought against it. It says it in the Bible. Paul says it, I believe, in Ephesians. Don't let the sun set when you're angry,
yeah.
you know. And one thing I learned in my marriage is that if we keep arguing it late into the night, actually it gets worse. And I had to learn to respect something about my husband, that he actually gets tired really early, much earlier than I'm a night owl.
Okay.
He wakes up early in the morning. And so he is not at his best self at like 10 p.m. And that could be right when I'm raring up to to talk about big issues. And sometimes things go better if we just go to sleep. And then, but the important thing is you make an appointment. You don't let the issue go away, but you say, okay, this is an important issue. We're not going to agree tonight, but maybe tomorrow at 10 a.m. we can have this conversation again.
Right.
Or whenever, make an appointment soon. But sometimes sitting in that discomfort is also important, and feeling that things aren't resolved. Let the truth of what is unresolved percolate for a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of us, it seems like your husband and I are probably semi-similar in that way, but it takes time for me to process things, right? And to be like mull on things and doing that stuff. So
you know what made me madder than anything is when he actually was falling asleep. Well, I'm trying to talk to him and he's falling asleep, and then I'm assuming that he doesn't care, and then I'm even madder. But he actually just his body shut down. He would go to sleep. So I had to learn to not take that personally too.
That's good. So marriage advice, right?
Right.
Or just relational advice anyways.
Yeah.
Realistically, like that's talking about the uncomfortability. Now, in talking about the narrows, like I've also heard, this is kind of the same gate, right, into Jerusalem that talks about the camel not being able to go through the eye of the needle,
yes,
right?
You're talking about the eye of the needle, and there is disagreement about what that actually means.
Okay.
But some people think it was clearly hyperbole, and you're supposed to understand that it's impossible, that you can't do this. put a camel through the eye of a needle. But some people talk about that there was a gate that was very narrow, and in order to get through it, people had to remove all the baggage. And so their camel couldn't be fully loaded.
Okay.
They had to take it off, get the camel through, and then maybe go through and pick up whatever luggage they had. But either way, it talks about really, well, first of all, stripping down to the essence of what's important. But then it could also mean that we can't do it on our own. So there is a lot of value in getting understanding what's extraneous. That's one thing when I do marriage counseling too. I tell people we've got to learn how to focus on one issue. So just because this thing went wrong today doesn't mean it's okay now to bring up everything your mother did last weekend and the kids are doing. I mean, none of that actually is relevant to the one particular issue. So focusing on that and working on the heart of it there's a lot of value in that. But I also like that first analogy I said that it's actually impossible to do it ourselves too. I think that we can put a lot of burden on ourselves to say, oh, I did this wrong, I didn't do it enough, I need more self-examination, I need more work on myself. Maybe I'll go be a hermit for a while and just work on my own stuff. But actually, if we realize that this is too hard of a job for us, I think we're getting even farther down the road where we need some help. Just like we can't earn our way to heaven, I don't think we can earn our way to inner peace. I don't think we can earn our way to a happy, comfortable life. I think that what is important to recognize is that we need help, and that's why Jesus came. Jesus knew we needed help, and he came to do the work that we could not do. So Jesus knows how to cut right to the essence of who we are, and when Jesus does that, I believe he sees somebody that he just adores. This the essence of the person that we are meant to be, and Jesus sees that and just absolutely loves us. And then Jesus is going to do what we can't do for ourselves to help us get closer to God. And maybe he's helping us remove some of the baggage. And so that's also very uncomfortable. He might prune us. And, and that's not comfortable. And when we need to face truths about ourselves, this part of me needs to change, I need to grow, whatever it is. But also he will carry us when we can't do it anymore. So that's where our hope is, that we aren't called to make ourselves perfect either.
Right.
We're called to rely on Jesus to help us through.
Right.
Yeah.
I loved your story about the Seder.
Oh, yeah.
That was, and the importance of, I think, realistically, that's very radical hospitality, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think that's obviously missing in today's culture in general, like overall.
I think people do that for their friends, like, oh, this person I care about is coming to a new gathering and I am happy to welcome them. But when a complete stranger shows up, how do we treat them? I've been becoming more and more sensitive to how to welcome immigrants. The Twin Cities area is a really big hotspot for immigration, and I mean that in a good way. Minnesota in general is quite welcoming to new immigrants, and so we have lots of different types of people that typically settle more in the Twin Cities, but it's all over Minnesota. But there's more services in the Twin Cities, and so the communities tend to grow around here. And I've been learning from them that welcome is more than just opening the door and saying, come on in. It's more than even saying, well, here, you just sit here, and here's our English speaking bulletin, and we'll try to help you with that. Deep hospitality means understanding and appreciating their culture, and usually involves us changing in some way and getting even more uncomfortable. And yeah, I experienced that many times from very, very faithful people are started to question why we would do part of the service in Spanish, for example, just a little bit, like the Lord's Prayer. Why would we do that? Not thinking that I'm being made uncomfortable. I'm an English speaker. I'm being made uncomfortable for no good reason. When we're understanding that these people are coming with no knowledge of English, and if there is any part of a worship service that speaks to them in their own language, suddenly a huge message has been given to them that we want you here, and we're going to try to accommodate your needs. I think it's talked about a little bit more for people who are differently abled, like, oh, maybe we need to make structural changes so they can get into our building. Maybe we need to make some accommodations in worship. I love that there's the earmuffs, the ear covers, and I see all types of people using them. They have different hearing issues, and I've definitely known in my other worship settings that people who use hearing aids, for example, sometimes being louder isn't helpful for them, or a bigger space, or even microphones at all, So sometimes we have to actually change things that we've become very comfortable with to be welcoming and hospitable, and it's a challenge that most of us don't enjoy because we're already uncomfortable in every other aspect of our lives. How can I give more discomfort?
Well, and I think it also when you're uncomfortable and you're working through that, it feels like it's more work, right?
Yes.
It's an investment of energy as well. It's like, I mean, human nature, you'd prefer things just to be easier and like just get more efficient and all that stuff.
Yes.
And it's just like, it feels like a better flow. But that sort of change also requires a significant giving of energy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think about it. One of the things I like to do is I do weightlifting, so I teach classes at the Y, and your weightlifting class should never actually get easier. People come in and I tell them, once you understand the language and everything, that part gets easier. You understand the lifting, proper form. But at the end of every class, you should feel equally exhausted, if not more so, if you're doing it right. So if you are gaining muscle strength, then you should be adding more weight, or you should be challenging your range of motion or something else, so that you're always pushing and working and feeling like you almost can't do it. And when you get to that point where you feel like you almost can't do it, that's when you're actually building muscle.
Right.
So if it ever gets so easy, you're just flipping that bar all over the place, then it stopped being useful for you. And so as humans, maybe we need to think about our personal growth in that way too. If we ever are just relaxing and feeling like we've got it all figured out, then we've kind of stopped growing. So there's so many other people to meet and things to experience that if we walk away from that, then we're missing out, and we're not doing that type of radical hospitality that I believe we're called to.
Right. Yep. Which is very it's welcoming and inclusive and really important.
And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why is my emotion rising up when I'm seeing this other person? Or maybe there is some deep baggage that we need to take to Jesus to work out too. Yeah.
Anything else like that you covered in your sermon that you would kind of wanna touch on?
Well, one thing which I ended with in the sermon that I also think is important for us to remember is that we are all created in the image of God, and we don't need to force ourselves to be anybody else's image. And I think that maybe could relieve some stress on some people if they remembered that. And I know that that's important for me to remind myself of too. I'm not actually created to try to look like anybody else or sound like anybody else or behave like anybody else. I'm created in the image of God. And so some of the things I do might make me look silly, and they might open me up to other people's criticisms if they think, I'm doing it wrong. I mean, always in the context of trying to honor God, so I'm not going to go out and break all the commandments. But I'm trying to honor God, and sometimes that means I'm putting myself out in front and doing things that make me look silly, and fine. And sometimes I'm going crazy trying to help somebody else feel more comfortable, so maybe a new person comes in and they're feeling awkward, so I'm going to make myself more awkward so that they don't feel like they're standing out as much. So God called and created each of us in a very unique way, and as the image of God, we have the authority to be our own selves and to testify to God in our own voices. And I hope people feel empowered by that and are more open then to hearing the nudges of the Spirit and what God is calling them to do and be in this world.
Yeah, that's really important. That there is also an acceptance of people's individuality, people who they are, if they're being the person that they were created to be, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that may be trying to be someone or something else,
right?
That they weren't. And I don't know if it's just culture that kind of drives it. I find American culture is so it's so weird because there's this drive for individualism. Like it's said,
right.
Like, freedoms, individual, whatever. But what people are pressing for is the American dream, right?
It's all the same. Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. They're pressing for looking to fit in and to do whatever. And I think if people were really themselves, right, they would fill in the gaps and create this bountiful community.
Yeah.
Because different people do different things, just like the parts of the body, right, working all together in unison. And I guess the biggest question is, how can you find that thing that you were created to be?
Right. And that's a hard question too, because we tell children, be whatever you want, whatever your heart desires, all that stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean it's static. It might develop and change over time, and there might not be one dream that you're here to fulfill, but there could be many. But I was just thinking about how, yes, everybody's told to be unique and be different, but then there's like a few different examples of what's acceptable, And I was this made me laugh. When I was at Walmart the other day, I saw Oreos that were Selena Gomez Oreos.
Okay.
And I'm like, how is a Selena Gomez Oreo different from like every other Oreo, And I'm like, did they actually put her face on there? That would be so ugly. Yeah. So I looked, it's just her signature. But why would somebody choose that? Somehow they want to connect with her or be like her or follow her example. And she's a wonderful person, but also let's not limit ourselves by who she is supposed to be and who she's called to be, but just find our true voice. And I think you're right. How do you do that? I think that does take some self-examination and a lot of prayer and courage. And I think just listening to the Holy Spirit and where is your spirit leading you? Where are you going to feel peace? Doesn't mean that's the easiest part, but you're going to feel peace if you are listening to the prompting of the Holy Spirit. And so sometimes the Holy Spirit will lead you to a place where other people are going to take care of you for a while, and that is exactly where you need to be. And sometimes the Holy Spirit's going to lead you out on a lonely path, and that's exactly where you need to be too. And you'll feel peace even if you're being challenged, if you are following the promptings of the Holy Spirit. If you are not, you're going to feel that inner turmoil, and you're not going to be, you're not going to find any type of satisfaction no matter what you do. So, yeah, I would just say it probably begins with a prayer and asking God. And if you really don't know where to start, ask God to reveal to you who God is calling you to be and what direction to go.
That's important advice. Is there anything anything to kind of close us off, you think? Or like, I guess you kind of...
I guess I would just say, pray, listen, be willing to do what God tells you to do, and your life will never be boring.
Having 5 kids makes your life also not ever boring either.
Right. I think you've been listening hard. Good job. No, that's another misconception. People think, oh, I'll have a baby and they'll be so cute and I'll dress them up and I'll have so much love in my life and everything will just be better. And actually the truth is nobody ends up with a baby that makes their life easier. No. The baby never makes it easier. It never makes it less expensive. It never calms anything down. There is a whole human there and a whole capacity for love, which is amazing. But
right.
The reason you choose to have a child isn't for your own enjoyment or pleasure. You choose it for a lot of other good reasons, like creating humans that are going to grow up and glorify God and make the world better. That's what you do when you're a parent. Your life doesn't get easier. So good job. Way to listen. Way to be obedient.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for this time. It's been lots of fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you have any questions, you can send those to communications@popmn.org. If you have any questions about what we have here, what was said here, but also if you have any other questions that you want us to try and address on the podcast, we can do that. And thanks, Jill, for your time, and looking forward to many future times.
Thank you so much.